Trust you did well on your quiz in the last lesson. Students in here did very well for the most part, though terms still continue to be a little bit of an issue. So we need to make sure we get these terms nailed down. We're going to move on from insurance and talk a little bit about business. It's very possible that some of you one day will be business owners, entrepreneurs, starting your own company, or at the very least, you may become managers in businesses. Maybe you don't start them, but you take leadership positions. And you need to be concerned with making money. Businesses exist not to help people, but to make money, right? If they don't make money, they don't exist. So making money is very important. Look at this, page 45 in your supplements. Quickly, Jalen, having your water bottle off your desk. Is that a honeybee? Bumblebee? Just cuz?
It's the motivation for me today.
It's called motivation. Okay, we have a buzz, buzz, bumblebee there. All right, anyway, page 45. That's random, sorry. Page 45. Let's talk a little bit about profit. Okay, we need to know that profit is the money a business makes. Profit in general just refers to a business making money. Here's how it works. Look at that first paragraph and let me have Michael, nice and loud, read the first sentence.
A business makes money by offering goods and or services to customers for prices that they believe will be acceptable to the consumers.
All right, that's how business works. You either offer a good or you offer a service to a consumer. Either you're like, you know what, I bet people would really like it if I sold Buzz Buzz Bumblebees.
No.
And so you're like, you know what, I bet people would buy these. So I'm going to make Buzz Buzz Bumblebees and try to sell them, okay? Because you believe people will want it. But you also have to be willing to sell it at a price people are willing to pay. You might like your Buzz Buzz Bumblebee enough that it motivates you to the tune of $100 a Bumblebee. But if nobody else is willing to pay $100 a Bumblebee, it's a stuffed Bumblebee. But if no one else is willing to pay $100 per Bumblebee, you're never going to sell any of them. But if you discover people are willing to pay $6.99 for the Buzz Buzz Bumblebee, well, can you make money with that? Can you make them for cheap enough you make money? Or you might feel like, you know what? I know people with small children like to take a break from small children sometimes. I bet babysitting would be a lucrative business. I bet I could babysit kids and parents would be happy with that. And so maybe Jalen decides she's going to start a babysitting business and she feels like her time is valuable. And so she's spending her time to watch children. She wants $50 an hour. Where's the problem? Maybe nobody thinks that she's worth $50 an hour. So nobody hires her for that. But maybe if she takes her price down to say $10 an hour, people are like, you know what? I would pay $10 an hour for to be able to go away and leave the kids with Jalen. So maybe that's how it works. Or maybe Ben decides, you know what? I'm really good with motors and stuff. I can fix up cars, and so I'm going to fix up cars so that they work. And or maybe I repair dents in vehicles that crash into barricades coming back from fine arts. And maybe they didn't actually crash. But anyway, I can fix dents. And so whatever, right? You have a service or you have a good, you've got to figure a price people are willing to pay. But here's the deal. What if when Luciana makes Buzz Buzz Bumblebees, it costs her $8 to make a Buzz Buzz Bumblebee? But people are only willing to pay $6.99. Is she going to make a business out of that? Nope. But if she discovers she can make Buzz Buzz Bumblebees for $1 and people will pay $6.99 for them, now see, she's got a business. She has to make money. So look at this here. Businesses have to pay money to get goods and to offer services, right? Even Jalen, for her to offer, she said, well, it doesn't cost her anything to be a babysitter, does it? Yeah, it does.
Costs more time.
Costs her time, and in some cases costs a little bit of money in gas to get to wherever she's babysitting, right? And maybe in some cases, you know, people expect her to give snacks to the kids, and maybe it costs her for snacks, whatever, right? It takes time that she could be spending doing something else, right? She could be making Buzz Buzz Bumblebees for Luciana and being gainfully employed there, earning $7.50 an hour. So if she's going to pass up that awesome opportunity, she better make more money doing babysitting. So she's like, you know what? I want $10 an hour if I'm going to babysit. I mean, for $7.50, I just go make Buzz Buzz Bumblebees. You know? So we get the idea. That was totally never part of the plan, by the way. This is just going off script here. But that's how businesses make money. Listen, they have to make more than it costs them. We all got that? So look at some terms here. The money that a consumer must pay for a good or service class is called the selling price. That's what the consumer pays. That's the customer. That's the person who pays for it. Meanwhile, the money that a business has to pay to offer the good or service is called cost. Luciana has to buy the materials to make Buzz Buzz Bumblebees. She has to buy the sewing machines or other whatever equipment you need for Buzz Buzz Bumblebees. She has to pay people to put them together. She has to pay to put little price tags on all of them. She has to pay somebody to ship them. That's a lot of expense. We call that class her
gross profit.
Nope, cost. Do you see that? Selling price is what the customer pays. Cost is what the business pays. Does that make sense? She has costs involved in making Buzz Buzz Bumblebees. She charges a selling price to the customer to buy Buzz Buzz Bumblebees. Do we understand those two terms? So what the customer pays, or the consumer pays class, that's the selling price. That's what she charges for it. But what she has to pay to be able to offer it in the first place is her cost. Right? I did lawn service. I had to buy the hedge trimmer. I had to buy the weed whacker. I had to buy the lawnmower. Had to buy gas for the lawnmower. Had to pay to fix up the lawnmower from time to time. Had to pay for my time. Right? There's different expenses involved. Right? Had to have water to drink or lemonade while I'm doing the lawn job. Right? Take a break as it's summertime. You know, and you have different costs. You got to make sure the selling prices outweigh costs. So, the business only makes money and grows if the price to consumers is greater than cost. Look at that last sentence. Read it with me. Last sentence of the first paragraph. The difference of selling price minus cost is called gross profit. Read that again. The difference of selling price minus cost is called gross profit. Side of the page, write this down. GP equals SP minus C. Gross profit equals selling price minus cost. GP equals SP minus C. Class, say this with me. Gross profit equals selling price minus cost. However, look at the next paragraph there. Luciana, owner of Buzz Buzz Bumblebees. Read that first sentence of the next paragraph, nice and loud.
A business owner must also factor in various costs of doing business, such as rent, utilities, advertising, and employee salaries.
So Jalen works for Luciana. Well, that costs her more money. It's not directly tied to the cost of making a Buzz Buzz Bumblebee, but she has to pay Jalen. She's got to pay rent on the shop she's using to make these things. If she wants to advertise so people know that Buzz Buzz Bumblebees are now a thing. Now, be honest, nowadays you got YouTube, you got TikTok, you got social media advertising you can do that largely can be free. Just got to get the video to go viral. I've got thousands of YouTube videos, none of them have gone viral. Something about just math. But anyway, if you're watching, like and subscribe, ring the bell, so you get a notification every time we go live. All right. Anyway, and then possibly utilities, right? She has to pay the electric bill, right? Because she and her employees like having air conditioning. She and her employees like having lights on. All of that, it's not directly tied to the cost of making Buzz Buzz Bumblebees. These are extra costs. We refer to these extra expenses, class, what's that next bold term?
Overhead.
Overhead. These extra expenses called overhead pull from the gross profit that a business might otherwise make. The actual profit a business makes in a given period of time, class, is called
Net profit.
Net profit. Now you're like, wait. Gross pay, net pay. Right, it's kind of the same way. Gross pay remembers what you actually earn. Net pay is what's left over after, government. Well, with a business, gross profit is this is how much we should have theoretically made. The net profit is, well, after you factor in these other things that take away from my profit, this is what's left over. This is what's left in the net after all the water drains through the holes. Does that make sense? So it's a similar term to gross pay, net pay. Net profit is what you really make at Buzz Buzz Bumblebees. After you've got the selling price minus cost plus overhead. Write this down. Net profit, NP, equals the selling price minus, and then in parentheses, the cost plus the overhead. This is what I call the true cost of doing business. The true cost is the cost and the overhead added together. Does that make sense? So if you want to find the net profit, you factor in the overhead, and both of them collectively get subtracted from selling price. If you want the gross profit, yeah, ignore the overhead. Theoretically, this is what we earned. Now, really what you earned factors in overhead. Let's take a look at some problems together here. Read problem number 1 for us, Ben.
Pearson's Piano Company sold a piano for $1,200. They had bought this piano for $695. What was the gross profit on the piano?
And to be fair, a grand piano or baby grand like that would not sell for $1,200. This is a relatively inexpensive piano they're selling, so it's not the one that's pictured there. But they paid $695 for the piano. They sold it for $1,200. Do we see that there is a cost and there is a selling price? So, class, find gross profit. Find the gross profit on this piano. And my video is frozen. Hello? Okay. And we're back. All right. I'm not sure how much of that was caught or not caught, but I think we're back and up and rolling now. What was the gross profit on the piano, Ben?
$505.
How many had $505? Now, did they really make $505? Well, no, because look at problem number 2 and read this for us if you would, Jalen.
Pearson's Piano Company had to pay $195 shipping when purchasing the aforementioned piano.
Good job.
They also spent an estimated $3.27 to polish the piano, cost of polish and employee pay. In addition, they offered free shipping to the customer, which cost them $76, fuel, employee pay, rental truck, etc. What was the total overhead for the piano?
All right. Do you see how there's all these other expenses involved, class? All of these expenses are called overhead. How do we find the overhead? Add up all the little expenses. So add them all together. How much total overhead was there on this piano? Ben, what you got?
$274.27.
All right, how many also had $274.27 in overhead? Okay, so the cost was $695, right? The overhead, you said $274.24?
$274.27.
27. All right, so class, what is the true cost of this piano? Add these two numbers together real quick. How much did it really cost? This isn't one of the questions in your book, but what's the true cost of this piano now? Add the overhead, which is already on your calculator, plus the $695. Jalen?
$969.27.
All right, does everyone see that they really paid $969.27 for the piano? That's not the price tag from the wholesale house or the manufacturer, right? But that's really what they paid for this piano. Does that make sense? Really, truly. And they only sold it for $1,200, right? So now, what is their net profit? That's what it asks in number 3. Gross profit in number 1 was $505. But really, truly, when you factor in all these other things, how much do they really profit on this piano? And what you got now, Jalen?
$203.27. Wait, yeah, 73 cents.
$230.73?
Yeah.
Yes, $230.73 is correct. How many have that answer? All right, do we understand the gross profit, net profit thing with the piano? Question?
It's not really a question, but I did 1,200 minus not that.
969.27?
Yes, but I also did $274.27.
Did you subtract that also?
No, I subtracted that by 505.
Do you see the other way we could have done the same problem? He said, Mr. Yasky, what if I just took the gross profit, which we already found, and just take the overhead from that? Wouldn't that also equal the net profit? Absolutely. We could have gone back to number 1 and said, okay, 505 is the gross profit, minus the extra overhead we didn't account for the first time, would also give you 230.73. So great job. Very good, Ben. Okay, questions, comments on that? All All right, let's take a look at another problem and read number 4 for us, and we're to Luciana nice and loud.
A Harvard sold a dozen lawnmowers for $87.50 each. They sold them for $159.95 each. Find the total gross profit.
All right, selling price, class.
$87.
No, selling price.
$159.95.
$159.95. Cost, class.
$87.50.
$87.50. So what's the gross profit? Well, we just subtract, right? But that would be for one lawnmower. But there were how many lawnmowers? 12 of them. So once we get that number, we need to multiply by 12. Or you could multiply each of the two numbers by 12, but I think it's faster the other way. Subtract to find the gross profit on each, and then multiply it by the 12 lawnmowers that they bought and then sold. How much gross profit are we looking at for this hardware store? And Luciana, call it when you've got it.
$869.40.
How many got the $869.40? Got a couple people still kind of getting it there. Questions on that one? Again, no overhead factored in because it asked about gross profit. So we don't really care about the overhead there. Just how much did it cost? How much did we sell it for? Boom. Yes, ma'am.
What did you say?
$869.40. Is that what you have now?
No, I have 890.05.
So you got minus 8750 times 12. Oh, so what you did was so you got to hit equals first and then times 12. Because it follows order of operations, it actually multiplied the 87.5 times 12 first and subtracted that from your 159.95. So yeah, make sure we follow order of operations here or just use an equal sign. So you got it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so we would want to hit it in 2 steps. Do the first subtraction, get your answer, hit equals, then multiply by 12 and hit equals again. Now we've got the 869.40. Excellent. Go on to number 5 and read that for us, Michael.
Seaward Sew Shop bought 120 spools of thread for 39 cents each. They paid $8.47 for shipping and paid an employee $4.25 for the time spent stocking the spools. If all spools sold for 75 cents each, what was the net profit?
All right, so let's start here. The cost. What is the cost of the spools of thread? Well, every spool class cost
39 cents.
How do I put 39 cents in the calculator? 0.39, okay? And they bought how many spools of thread? 120. So we just have to multiply the 0.39 by the 120. How much did it actually cost them for the thread, Ben?
$46.80.
$46.80. Y'all got $46.80 also.
Yes, sir.
I got $46.80. 120 times 0.39. All right, but they didn't just pay that cost. They also have overhead, right? What's one of the overhead items here that you read about, Michael?
$4.25.
Presumably that's about a half an hour of stocking the spools. Taking them out of a container, putting them on the shelf. It took the employee about a half an hour to do it, so it cost him $4.25 if he's being paid $8.50 an hour. They also paid what other overhead for all of this stuff? Anyone?
$7.
How much?
Yeah.
$8.47. That's also overhead because they had to pay to ship the spools of thread, right? So really, what is the cost plus overhead here? How much is the true cost of all these spools of thread?
$59.52.
Someone else got $59.52 for the total cost? Add up those numbers together?
No.
I got $59.52 when I added those numbers.
I subtracted them all.
Oh, no. The cost and the overhead get added together, remember, to get the true cost. They paid this much just to have the spools, but they also had to ship the spools to themselves so they could sell. They also had to pay somebody to stock them. So this is really what it cost. Does everyone see that? Now, how much was the selling price? Well, every spool class, it said they sold for 75 cents. And they sold how many?
120.
All 120 of them, right? So how much was their selling price? Multiply it out. What is it?
$90.
Comes out to $90 even. Right? How do we enter that on the calculator, class? 120 times 0.75. Does everyone got the $90? That's their selling price. So this is the money that came in for the spools of thread after they spent this much. So what is their net profit? What do we have to do? Jalen?
Wait.
To find the net profit. Subtract what? The $90 minus the $59.52, the true cost, the cost and overhead combined into one value. And what is that net profit? Luciana?
$30.48.
There you go, $30.48. Are you starting to understand gross profit versus net profit? Again, if we didn't care about the overhead, we would have just said 90 minus 4680. But really, truly, we do need to be concerned with how much it costs for extra stuff, so we factor that in. There's our net profit. Number 6, read that for us, Ben.
Jake's Tire Sales paid $3,140 for shipment of tires. Overhead was 10% of the cost of the tires. The tires sold for $4,430 total. What was the net profit?
Sometimes when you get things shipped, class, the shipping will be charged as a percent of your total. So the place they bought the tires from, they said, hey, if you spend within this range of money, we're going to charge you 10% of whatever you spent as a shipping charge. That's what they're doing here. All right, that's their overhead, was that shipping charge, presumably. So what is 10% of the cost? Find that with your calculator, or you might be able to do it in your head. Class?
440.
Ooh, careful, 10% of the cost. Remember, cost is what the company pays, not what they sell them for.
Oh, 314.
There we go. Does everyone see that $314 is 10% of the cost, which was the $3,140? Everyone see that? All right, so if that's the overhead, and the cost was $3,140, then class, what is the true cost of the tires?
$3,454.
Does everyone understand how we got true cost, as I like to call it? Cost and overhead together. Now, the selling price was what again, Ben? How much did they sell all these tires for?
$4,430.
All right. Now, that's not factoring in employee pay yet, but maybe it's a single person run business. They sold all the tires for $4,430 after paying total $3,454 for them. What is the net profit on these tires? And we'll get it from Ben once he's got it.
$976.
How many also had $976 net profit? Ooh. Subtract. Subtract, not divide. Just subtract. Oh, yeah. Right. So, okay, so Jalen, think from a business perspective. This is what customers are paying you. Look at me. This is what customers are paying you. This is what you had to pay to somebody else to get the stuff in the first place. So this is money out. This is money in. This is positive money. If you want to think of it, this is negative money. And so we subtract because the signs are different. The money's going different directions. Make sense? All right, look at number 7 and read that for us now, if you would, Jalen.
Bill started a summer lawn service in his neighborhood and bought a lawnmower for $175, a weed eater for $49, an edger for $59, and a leaf blower for $35. He also spent $12 on gas to power his equipment throughout the summer. He charged his customers $35 for lawn care and did 42 jobs last summer. What was his net profit for the summer?
All right, let's start by the money he made, class. He made how much per lawn job?
$35.
Does everyone see he made 35 bucks? That's how much he charges his customers. That's his selling price for his service, not for a product this time. How many customers or how many times did he mow lawns that summer?
42.
42. So it's not, a super big business or anything, only 42 jobs over the summer, but how much did he make in sales? What's his selling price total? Jalen, what you got? Charges every customer $35, and 42 times he mows somebody's lawn. How much does he get from the customer? What's the money coming in?
$1,470.
How many had $1,470? We can think of this as a positive number. Okay, any questions where that number came from? You all understand that number? But it's not like that's not how much he made in the summer, is it? Because he had little expenses along the way, didn't he? Class, he had to buy a
Gas.
He had to buy gas. He also had to buy a lawnmower and a weed eater and a edger and the leaf blower. He had to buy all of them. All of those are what cost him. So now you could argue, you might call this overhead, you might call it cost, whatever, in sales and in services. It's kind of all. How much does he spend total on all this stuff, Ben?
In total, $330.
He spends $330. Class, is that money coming in or money going out?
Money going out.
That's money going out. So we're going to subtract that away. Now again, you can think of this as cost or overhead or both, whatever. The bottom line is, how much did he really make? What is his net profit? Well, we put it together, and what do we got here, Ben?
$1,140.
That's how much he really made over the course of the summer. Yes, sir.
What's an edger?
So have you ever noticed so you've got like the lawn and then you've got the driveway? And have you ever noticed there's a tiny little gap between the driveway and the grass? And like if you look at it vertically, like here's the driveway and the grass sticks straight up. That's because an edger is a vertical blade that runs right along the edge of the driveway and just chops everything off perfectly vertical, makes it look nice and sharp. Whereas the weed eater or the weed whacker, if you use that, it would probably usually put like a little bit of a slanted edge along the edge. Unless you turn the weed whacker upside down, which is what I do because I'm too cheap to buy an edger. But anyway, yeah. So, have y'all not done lawn work for your folks?
No, I didn't know that's what an edger was for. I usually just use a weed eater.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I do. I just turn it upside down to get that nice vertical thing because I'm too cheap to buy a separate edger. But the big boys in the business, actually it's a metal blade that spins instead of the twine, so it doesn't break as often, which is my big struggle, right? Because whenever you're going upside down along that concrete cement edge, it tends to break your weed whacker line. So they buy something that actually, and it's even got like they can set the spacing, so if you want a 1/2 inch versus an inch, they can set that, but you pay if you want them. Yes, ma'am?
For number 6, I still didn't get the 900 something.
Okay, so let me see your work on number 6. What numbers do we have written down? None, that doesn't help. Okay, so this is their selling price. Put SP next to 4,430. All right, now this is cost. Put a C next to that. And overhead, we said, was the 314, right? So write 314. All right, so remember selling price minus the cost and overhead together. So take that, minus that, but also minus that, because both cost and overhead are negative if you want to think of it that way. Plug that in one more time. All right, while she's doing that, any other questions on net profit versus gross profit? We feel like we got a pretty good understanding of how that works now. Basically, gross profit, you don't think of all the little details that have cost you money. Net profit, you do think of every single place I've had to spend money to earn this other money, right? It costs money to make money is how it basically works in life. All right, how you doing there, Jalen? The rest of you may turn over to page 47, because sometimes businesses don't make money. Yes? There we go, good, that is correct. All right, turn over to page 47. And this is unfortunate in many instances. Page 47 at the top of the page. And it says in some cases, a business will spend more on cost and overhead together than prices can cover. In these instances, class, the company suffers a loss. Loss is the opposite of profit. When you make money, class, you have a profit. And when you lose money, don't make this too hard now, you have a loss. Does everyone understand the difference? Loss, you lose. All right, so think about it this way, class. Look up this way. Remember we said net profit is selling price minus cost plus overhead, right? Well, if this is the bigger number, if you spend more, Ben, on cost and overhead than you make in selling price, we have to reverse them. The cost and overhead is your big number minus your smaller selling price. But you no longer have a profit. You now have, class, loss. This is the equation to write down on this page. Loss, you just flip it around the other way. You just take the bigger number minus the smaller number, but you recognize now it's a loss instead of a profit. Does that make pretty good sense? Again, you don't necessarily have to memorize the formulas if you think through it logically, which is the approach I'd like to use. I don't want to think of what is the formula for. I just want to think, okay, logically speaking, if the actual true cost is more than I got, I lost money. And just subtract to find it. Now, there is a strategy here. Look at the next two sentences, the last two sentences of that paragraph. Read them for me, Jalen.
Margins expressed as
the first paragraph. This last two sentences, starting right after the bold selling price.
Sometimes a business will purposely take a loss and attempt to clear old inventory clearance racks or to attract new customers. Selling products or services at a loss to attract new customers is called a loss leader strategy.
Okay, a loss leader is where the business knows they're going to take a loss, but they do it anyway to get customers in. For instance, when any of you ever seen like at a store someone's selling such and such for a penny when you buy this much other stuff? They know they're going to lose money on that item. They don't care because they're getting you to spend money somewhere else. They're willing to take a loss here knowing they'll make a profit on something else over there. Does that make sense? Or sometimes there will be a promotional deal where, for instance, a new car wash opened in Phoenix City and said, hey, get your first car wash absolutely free. So you know I took advantage of that. And so I got my free car wash. And I haven't been back since, but I got my free car wash. Now, why did they offer free car washes? They lose money if they give it away free, right? So that you'll come back again, which didn't work for me. But, but I haven't been back, but I got my free car wash because I'm cheap. But anyway, it's a loss leader strategy. They gamble that most people aren't like me, and then once they get their free car wash, they're like, you know what? I like the convenience of that. Yeah, I would pay money for it again, and again, and again. And you get the idea, right? So that's the idea behind loss leader strategy. Now, businesses endeavor, though, of course, to make profit. That's what they're really all about. And they want to maintain, notice this, underline these words, a certain percent of profit called profit margin. Underline that. A certain percent of profit called profit margin. And that's on each item or service sold. Margins are expressed as percents. Notice how you find the percent. Net profit divided by selling price. So the margin is the net profit over selling price. Does that make sense? Now, if you've lost money, then you don't have a net profit, do you? You have a loss. So if you take a loss margin, that's loss over selling price. But you compare how much did you really make or really lose divided by how much you sold the thing for. And that gives you your profit margin. Does that make sense? Usually they want profit margins to be around 30%. Okay, if they can make 30% off the selling price, they usually feel pretty good. Well, let's look at some practice problems with this now. Read the first problem for us, Luciana.
The bookstore bought some books for $930 plus $104 shipping. It sold the books for $1,000. What was their net loss?
All right. You know how it goes, right? Clearance. Things go to clearance and they end up losing money. So some of the books they made money, some of the books they lost money. They sold the books for $1,000. Now, class, paying attention? Stay awake. I know it's a Friday. We're tired from fine arts and all that yesterday. Stay with me. They bought the books for how much?
$900.
$930. They sold the books for how much? $1,000. Now, that's not making much money, but they did make money, right? No, because they had to pay shipping, didn't they? So when you find the true cost, find it real quick. What's the true cost of these books? What's the true cost of these books, Jalen?
34.
Well, the true cost of the books total was what?
1,034.
Y'all got 1,034? That's the true cost of the books, from the books plus the shipping. And they only sold them for how much?
$34.
No, you only sold them for how much?
Oh,
$1,000.
They bought them for $930. They sold them for
$1,000.
$1,000. They end up losing money, don't they? Their cost plus overhead is more than the selling price. Now, they didn't lose much, but I mean, they want to make money, right? How much did they lose? There we go now, Jalen. 34 bucks. Does everyone see how the bookstore lost 34 bucks on that deal? And the idea, probably what happened, class, is they bought some books that nobody wanted.
Yeah.
And so they had to sell them for clearance prices, sell them for $1, you know, that kind of thing. Donate them to a library so they don't get anything at all. And so when it's all said and done, they'd spent more on the books than they made. Well, hopefully they learn from it. Don't buy those books again. Find something people want to read, right? All right. Or start a coffee shop in your bookstore so people will at least spend money there. All right. Anyway, if all else fails, start a coffee shop. Number 2. Go ahead and read that for us if you would. Let's see, who read the last one?
Luciana.
Luciana read the last one. Michael, where are you? Number 2.
Mike's Auto Repair knows it costs $13.50 for them to do an oil change, shop supplies, and labor. But to promote their business, they ran a special 1 week during which they offered oil changes for $12.95. If they did 73 oil changes that week, what was the loss?
All right, so class, they're charging what selling price for the oil change?
$13.50.
Think about what you're reading. How much did they charge?
Oh, $12.95.
They charged $12.95. Does everyone see that? That's how much they sold, so to speak, the oil change for. But it costs them how much to even do it in the first place?
$13.50.
$13.50, right? Every single oil change they do, they're losing money. Do you see that? Now, first question, how much are they losing on every oil change? Plug it into the calculator. How much are they losing on every single oil change they do?
55 cents.
55 cents. Does everyone see that? Every single oil change, they're losing 55 cents. Do we see that? Does everyone see where that number came from? But every oil change, 55 cents isn't bad, but they do how many oil changes?
73.
73 oil changes that week. So now what do we need to do?
Multiply by 73.
There we go. And how much did they lose just on the oil changes? Granted, they probably made money on some other things, but on the oil changes, how much did they lose that week? Ben?
$40.15.
$40.15. Now, again, this was a loss leader thing because if they get you in to do an oil change and they do a good job and you like them, maybe you'll come back for an oil change again. Or maybe when something more expensive goes out on the car, you'll go to them first. Yeah, they were good. They were nice folks. They did a good job on my car, taking care of the oil change. They were friendly. They were fast. You know what? I'll have them fix my alternator. I'll have them fix my whatever, right? Replace the brakes or do the tune-up, whatever. And now all of a sudden, they're making the big bucks. But they got you as a customer now. And they did it for 55 cents. Right? They did it for 73 of these people. But does that make sense? All right? Or you're one of those people who, whoever's offering the special oil change, you just go to them. And then, anyway, number 3, read that for us, Ben.
Mr. Holt bought a used car at an auction for $8,900. He spent $1,480 repairing it. He listed it for $12,500, but it didn't sell for 2 months. So we reduced the price to $9,900. What was his loss?
All right, first thing we need to do, class, how much did he spend on the car? Well, he paid what cost, class?
$8,900.
$8,900. But there was overhead to fix it up. What was the overhead?
$1,100.
So how much was the real cost to
$10,000.
buy this car?
$10,380.
All right, $10,380. We all like that number? That's how much it really cost it. Now, class, he not going to want to take a loss on this thing, does he? So he wants to charge how much?
$12,500.
$12,500. Does everyone see if he sells it at $12,500, he's making money?
Yeah.
But nobody buys the car. And for 2 months, it sits on his car lot, taking up space. He said, you know what? I want to put more cars on the lot, but this blasted thing's taking up space. You know what? I'll lower the price to get rid of it. But he ends up selling it at what price, class?
$999.
$9,900. There we go, an extra zero in there. So, class, he sold it for less than he actually paid, didn't he? How much did he lose on this particular vehicle? Ben?
$480.
480 bucks. Did we all get 480 for that one? All right, do we see how losses sometimes just happen? Right? If you just sit there stubbornly waiting for someone to pay for the car, you might lose out on an opportunity to sell better cars, but that could give you an even better profit. So say, yeah, cut my losses, let's move on with life. 480 bucks. As long as I make thousands on all the other cars, I can absorb a $480 loss on this one car. Make sense? Look at the next one, number 4. Read this for us, Jalen.
Once upon a child's manager bought 83 children's watches for $7.50. each to use a loss leader to get more customers into the store. The watches were sold for $4.99 each. If the store had a $50 in overhead to sell watches, find the loss.
All right. So they buy these watches for how much, class? $750. But they're planning to only sell them for how much?
$4.99.
$4.99. They're going to advertise a special. Child's watch, $4.99. Oh. As a parent, I like that deal. You can't get that deal anywhere else, so you know where I'm going to go? Once Upon a Child, going to get me a watch. You know what else I might do while I'm in there? Might buy some other things for my kid. And those things, they make money on. They got me in the store. Now, how much do they lose on each watch?
$622.50.
Loss per watch, you said, is how much?
$622.
Oh, no, I'm not looking for the final answer. Just how much on every individual watch do they lose? No, they paid $750, but they're getting back $4.99. $251. Okay. Do we see that they're losing $251 on every single watch that they sell? Now, how many watches did they buy and then sell? 83 of them. So, how much are they losing total by selling all these watches to these 83, presumably, customers who came into Once Upon a Child?
$808.33.
Is that right? 208.43? 33. 208.33. Sorry. Do you see that that's how much they lost on the watches? But there was some overhead involved in shipping the watches, setting up the display, advertising the watches for being a big promotion this weekend. How much was the overhead?
$50.
That's another $50 lost, correct? That's more expenditure. So they already lost this much, now they're losing another $50. So really, how much did they lose on these watch promotions?
$258.33.
There we go, $258.33 lost. Does everyone understand that? Now again, to the company, they'd be like, you know what? If it gets more people in the store, it's worth it. And then you have people like me who walk in and all we do is buy the watch. Or maybe I buy 4 watches for all my kids and walk out of the store. And then they're just out. But you know what? If nothing else, and I walked into that store once. Once you've gone in somewhere once, you might go there again. That's what they're hoping. Even if a cheap tightwad like me, I might remember when my kid has a need or wants something, I'm like, you know, I think I remember I saw that at Once Upon a Child when I went there for the watches. They're hoping it'll get more customers later. Yes?
That's a real thing?
Loss leader? Yes. Yeah, everything we do in this class is real
No,
things.
I mean,
Once Upon a Child.
Yeah.
There is actually a store called Once Upon a Child.
Yeah, isn't it like
I think it's
the
actually a
landings?
consignment type store.
Yeah, isn't
Yeah.
it the landings or something?
I think so. I've never actually been. I think my wife's been. Anyway, Mr. Felburn, we gotta hurry on. Mr. Felburn bought a desk for $145. That's not bad. He spent $38 to fix it up. Okay. What would we call that, class?
The
38 is his
overhead.
overhead, right? The 145 is his?
Selling price?
No, he didn't sell it. He bought it for 145. That's his
Cost.
The 38 is his
Overhead.
And it says he sold it after he fixed it up. He sold it, class, for $250. Do you see? He made money. How much did he make? Let's find that first. How much did he make off of this desk? Call it when you got it. $67. Gonna hear it from the ladies first. Guys, you got the 67. $250 that he sold it, minus the 145 he paid, also minus the 38 he had spent to fix it up. Now, the question doesn't ask what's his net profit. It says what is his profit margin. Profit margin, class, is a percent. To get a percent, you must make a fraction. And we always take the net profit and we put it over the selling price. How much did he sell that desk for? $250. So on your calculator, divide the 67 by the 250. And what is his profit margin on this desk? Anyone?
27%.
About 27%. Did I tell you how to round it? No, I didn't say anything about rounding. So we're going to go with 27%. Questions on that? Make sense? Look at number 6. Josiah buys a skateboard for $21. He sells it a year later for $30. What's his profit margin? Well, first of all, class, what's his profit?
$9.
How much?
$9.
$9. Bought it for $21, sells it for $30. His profit is $9. And what was his selling price?
21.
No, he bought it for 21.
30.
He sold it for 30. So we're going to do this, the profit, here you could argue it's just profit, rather not net profit per se, but it's profit divided by his selling price. And what do we get for his profit margin, class?
30%.
30%, right? 0.3 becomes 30%. Does that make sense? Again, make sure you put the top number divided by bottom number. Always put the top number in first. But then we look at number 7. Math teacher bought 3 calculators for $13.49 each. All right, let's find out how much that was real quick.
$40.47.
Somebody got $40.47?
Yep.
All right. But he also spent $9 in time and gas to buy them. So how much did he really spend? What's his cost plus overhead?
$49.47.
$49.47. He's turned around and sold these calculators to some students for $15 each. Ooh, so how much did he get back?
15.
Per calculator. It's 45, right? Because there were 3 of them. So he gets back 45. Wait a second. He spent, stay with me, he spent $49.47, right? And he only made positive 45. So here, this poor math teacher ends up taking a loss because he loves his students so much. He's willing to take a loss. What is his loss?
$4.47.
He loses $4.47. Now, the way we show he loses oftentimes is with a negative sign. So if we make this a negative $4.47 and we want to find his profit margin, do you see it says that? Find his profit margin. He doesn't have any profit. He has a loss. Right. A negative profit margin shows a loss. We're going to take his loss, negative profit, and divide it by his, what did he sell them for?
45.
The 45 bucks. So divide the negative 447 by 45.
I got an error.
Negative 447 divided by, you have to use the, that's not a minus, but a negative.
Okay.
Negative 4.47 divided by 45.
Where was the negative?
It's down there at the bottom,
Okay.
a little negative symbol. And what do we get here? Anyone?
Negative 10%.
Negative 9.9% or negative 10% if you do the nearest whole percent. He lost a little bit of money. But notice the profit margin is negative when there's been a loss. Because he didn't profit, they lost. Make sense?
Yep.
Questions on that business math? Just an introduction to how some of that money works. Help you think outside the box a little, and maybe one day you'll be in business. Questions? All right, homework for this evening is to do page 46, the homework 1 through 12. Page 46, the homework 1 through 12. We'll take a look at that tomorrow. We'll review over this a little bit more, and then we'll move on to some other topics of investment. You are dismissed.